Alright guys, we have a good one today. Welcome back to the second ever video on the Zach Reacts YouTube channel. For those of you guys that seen our last video on ancient Rome and the Colosseum, today we have one on what it was like to be a spectator in Rome at the Colosseum. This video is from a channel called Weird History. We're going to go ahead and react to it, but that is the original creator, so thank you to Weird History for putting this video out and allowing us to react to it today. We're going to go ahead and see what it was like back over 2,000 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, at the Colosseum in Rome. We may not get a very good idea of what it was like for the gladiators or the people that fought, but we're going to find out what it was like to be a spectator.
Roman Colosseum, audiences could munch on chickpeas while watching a midday execution or check out the lions. No, not those.
Hey, those are my lions.
Other exotic animals released through the arena's hidden
Snack on
trapdoors from their
chickpeas.
cramped seats, or even observe Roman elites harvesting actual sweat from gladiators to make themselves sexier. Events held at the Colosseum were so varied and elaborate.
What were they doing? Harvesting sweat from gladiators to make themselves? We're gonna...
that the audience never knew what to expect. Today, we're looking at what it was like to be a spectator at the Roman Colosseum. Hit that bell for
Like I said, this video is from Weird History. Go check them out, you guys. They make some great content. Tickets were free, but the seating was divided by classes.
The Colosseum was free, one of the many perks of being a Roman citizen. But attendees still had assigned seating. The podium and first few rows made up the first and best tier, where the emperor, vestal virgins,
front row seats,
and
of course,
other Roman elites who watched the blood sport. Merchants, government toadies, and other well-heeled patricians got to sit in the second tier. Higher up, the third tier was reserved for
all the
ordinary
peasants,
Joes.
all the peasants up top. That's how it is nowadays too. We got an ad.
Going to the games was kind of like going to Disneyland. You know, if Donald and Goofy fought to the death for the edification of Emperor Mickey. On festival days, the Colosseum attracted 50,000 spectators, a goldmine for vendors. Outside the Colosseum, traders and street sellers hawked food and souvenirs to visitors.
It's funny. I mean, why wouldn't it be the same? But it's funny because you go to a stadium nowadays and it's all vendors outside, people hustling, people selling tickets, you know. Things don't change.
They have even sold programs with stats on the gladiator, sort of like Topps baseball cards of the day, that could presumably immediately spike in value thanks to all the sudden athlete death. Let's hope that Miccius Mantle Maximus card is in mint condition. As for street food, the Romans enjoyed sausages, chickpeas, and pastries. Inside the Colosseum, they could grab sweets, wine, and snacks.
Got any nuts? I haven't got any nuts, sorry. I've got wren's livers, badger spleens. No.
And of course, there was merchandise, a wooden ball with a special token inside. The tokens could be cashed in for special prizes, from food or cash to their own spot on an island, which, exciting as that sounds,
really, they were doing, things have really not changed.
That's what the Romans called their multi-story apartment buildings. Once visitors made it inside, they faced the challenge of finding their seats in a stadium big enough to hold 50,000. Depending on his status, a man might settle right into a nice spot at the lowest level, climb 12 to 15 stories to the top to sit with the womenfolk and the poor, who probably have the toughest time climbing 15 freaking stories of stairs. Both the entrances and the staircases were kept separate by iron and marble dividers, and like the seating areas, the passageways were divided by class.
I'm going to be doing, my next video is probably going to be on the construction of the Colosseum, but I definitely want to look into that because I'm so curious on like how they did it, or, you know, I know it took a lot, one of the previous videos said like 10 years or something like that, but I mean, just the level of detail, I mean, they're bricks, there's bricks, but still, like, on the outside, the inside, everything's so perfectly put together, just like a lot of older buildings. But I just want to know, like, the details on how they did everything. But that's for a future video, probably the next video. But let's keep this rolling.
And like the seating areas, the passageways were divided by class. Covering about 6 acres of land and rising 12 to 15 modern stories tall, the Colosseum was and remains the largest amphitheater in the world. But although the building itself was grand, the majority of the audience was as cramped as flying coach on American Airlines. Everyone not in the ancient Roman version of the
That's
first
the worst.
class got a 15-inch wide seat with 27.5 inches of legroom. Now subtract air conditioning, add 15 levels of stairs, and you'd be ready to watch some bloody gladiators fight too. Because of the immense size of the structure, spectators in the nosebleed section probably couldn't see or hear much of the action. The highest part of the 15-story stadium sat upon a wall which extended 16 feet above the other spectators. The crowds at the top, made up of mostly women and the impoverished, strained to see the fights below. And while the roar of the crowd could make it to the top, the spectators in the highest seats probably couldn't hear much else from the fighting ring. This mirrors the living situation in the city. The islands we talked about earlier were about 6 stories tall, with rent mostly determined by the number of decaying stairs a tenant had to climb to get to his apartment. We can imagine what it was like to try and convince your friends to help you move a sofa. A hideaway bed? These haven't even been invented yet. The Imperial Box. Gladiators fought before him.
Homeboy
and
gets
appealed
the
to him for
best
mercy,
seat in the
often
house, of
successfully.
course.
The emperor could order a gladiator's end at any time with only his thumb, and spectators waited and watched for his reactions. Contrary to the movie cliche, forgiveness was the rule, not the exception, and the gladiators were more likely to die from deep wounds than they were from an inverted royal thumb. While the Roman elites might sit close to the emperor, the august ruler was, you guessed it, separated from the other spectators. He even had dedicated doors to enter and exit the Colosseum, so he never ran into the rabble or slipped on lion droppings and discarded sausage.
Lion dropping.
There's more sense than ego to this.
So I learned
Nothing inflames
earlier
mob
they-
mentality like violence,
Why is this not
and Rome
pausing?
was beginning to decay before the Colosseum was even
Uh-oh.
built.
Why is my spacebar not working? That's weird. I learned earlier that they had animals fight each other, and they also did the thing where they would throw a lion in with the gladiators or the prisoners or the slaves, whatever they were. I got a lot to learn, clearly. I don't know it all. But, so I guess even elephants, what'd they say? Elephants, tigers, bears, alligators, crocodiles. I did not know they had all those animals. And then they had like shafts, elevators that brought them up from like the lower level, the basement, up through the ground level of the Colosseum. I don't know. And they would just appear. Then they had trap doors to like crazy stuff.
The Colosseum provided a place of respite thanks to the Valerium, which is a fancy word for
I just
a
can't
really big
fathom the
curtain.
amount of work.
The Valerium was the building system of adjustable
Just
awning,
to
similar to a ship's
make the
mast
awning.
and sails. A ship crew stationed near Rome maneuvered the rig. Using ropes and pulleys, the crew could pull a large piece of fabric or smaller separated strips across the top of the structure and block the sun. Ironically,
That is
meant
very
that
cool,
while
though.
they couldn't see or hear much from their seats, the lowest class could enjoy the shadiest part of the Colosseum while the nobles sweated in the sun. It's basically like going to the movies, just to sit in the air conditioning. Fights at the Colosseum often had their own soundtrack. Spectators thrilled to the sounds of trumpets, horns, and water organs, while gladiators tilted at exotic animals and, of course, each other. Music continued even when the emperor was deciding
Imagine
whether a
sitting there and some dude's just getting eaten alive by an exotic animal. Like what? Also, I'm still trying to figure out if they took bets on these events, because to my knowledge, they took like bets, which is crazy. I mean, not really, but if that's the case, like things are literally the same nowadays.
gladiator
Not quite. People aren't getting eaten by lions in front of 50,000, 60,000 people, but
had shown enough grit to fight another day. The music was more than just entertainment for the audience, though. It also served as a cue for the stagehands. The music might tell them when to release a wild animal into the arena or when the next fight was about to start. Sort of like how Stone Cold Steve Austin knew it was time to run into the ring.
I was just getting ready to... I talked about this in the last video. Apparently, they could flood the inside of this thing, and then they would have
Wide array of spectacles.
mini
Though many
ship
depictions of
wars.
the arena show seats surrounding a sandpit, the floor had a complex layout of walls and chambers underneath a wooden platform. Different pieces of
Crazy.
scenery could be elevated through the Colosseum floor, providing new and distinct scenarios for every show, like the Pokemon Stadium in Smash Bros. Among the intricate caverns under the Colosseum, there were even runoff canals to drain the arena after a naval performance called a Naumachia
Like
was
what?
performed. The wooden platform
Imagine
and its
nowadays. Sorry to keep pausing on you guys. Imagine you go to a stadium nowadays, and they're like sometimes they transform football fields or basketball courts, or stadiums can switch from football to hockey, or whatever it may be, and you're like, oh, that's cool. Imagine you go to a football stadium and they say that they can flood the stadium and have naval battles. So the fact that they were doing this then?
were removed from the Colosseum floor. Water was then diverted from aqueducts into the center, creating an
So
artificial
much
lake
effort.
of up to 5 feet deep. Scaled-down ships were brought into the stadium to reenact
Obviously, they
famous
weren't
naval battles from
full-scale
history.
ships, but
A lot of people, especially if they've seen the movie Gladiator, assume gladiators were all slaves or criminals convicted to die in the arena for Rome's entertainment. But that wasn't always the case. Some Romans actually signed up at gladiator schools to become professionals. For those who did, the benefits of being a victorious
who would sign up
gladiator
for that, but-
outweighed the inherent risks of the work. Gladiators were treated like celebrities in Rome, like modern athletes. Roman children could even buy clay action figures representing famous fighters. Victors sometimes had affairs with aristocratic women. Graffiti from Pompeii even bragged about their supposed prowess. Gladiator sweat was considered an aphrodisiac, so Romans sometimes mixed it into their face creams.
Bro,
Given this
what?
information, it is our duty to assume that LeBron James put some of his sweat into every bottle of
No.
his official Sprite flavor.
That's gross.
One of the many shows held within the Colosseum was the animal hunt. The bestiari, gladiators trained to battle wild animals, squared off against lions, tigers, bears, oh my, along with hippopotamuses, elephants, deer, giraffe, and allegedly even whales.
What?
The bestiary
See, every
fought a
time I watch a new
combination
video, I
of
learn something new,
harmless and
if that's
potentially
true.
dangerous animals, but the fighters were rarely at risk. Of the thousands of animals slain in a single day, many were taken out from afar with spears or bows. Presumably, that's how most of the whales were dealt with, because we can't imagine Russell Crowe wrestling with a whale and winning. Actually, maybe we can.
If I'm gonna keep making these react videos, I'm gonna have to get YouTube Premium so I don't get ads, bro.
Even though it's been highly propagated as fact, and though it is possible, there's no evidence to suggest that Christians were killed and fed to lions at the Colosseum. The association between the Colosseum and Christian suffering was first stated in the 4th century, but then largely forgotten until the 17th century. During the 4th century CE, Christian and Latin scholar Lactantius and Bishop Caesarea Eusebius wrote of emperors intentionally slaying Christians. Such actions were never imperial policy, but scattered events which occurred around the empire. The Colosseum did regularly feature punishments referred to as the Midday Games, where lawbreakers and POWs, called the damnati, were condemned through a multitude of different and horrible methods. Sometimes the damnati
public
were thrown
execution,
defenseless
kind
into
of.
the arena to be torn apart by wild animals, while others were forced to fight one another to the death.
In the
Roman
other video I
Colosseum
watched
battles were
today,
like the original Battle Royale.
They kind of went over how they used the Colosseum as a form of, or like a scare tactic. That way everybody else would see what happens, kind of like public execution. It's a public display of this is what's going to happen if you mess around and go against what we, tell you to do. So, kind of the same thing. Their little midday powwow with all these slaves. Or prisoners.
After the disastrous reign of Emperor Nero and 3 other rulers, all within a single year, Emperor Vespasian rose to power and distanced himself from the distasteful image of personal luxury and opulence associated with his predecessors. Through propaganda and great projects around the empire, Vespasian established his vision as a leader who worked for the Roman people, not his own desires. One such project was the Colosseum. Vespasian personally commissioned it as an entertainment venue for the people of Rome. Over the next 10 years, Vespasian demolished Nero's private lake and in its place built the enormous Colosseum. At the time, however, no one called it that. It was instead known as the Flavian Amphitheater, after the emperor's family.
Yeah, I definitely
So why do
cannot
we
wait
call
to
it the
find out
Colosseum?
how this was
The
actually
title itself only dates
constructed
back
and
as far as
all the little
11th
details.
century, and most historians believe it is named after the Colossus Neronis, a large bronze statue commissioned by Nero, which was once located near where the Colosseum was built. So essentially, one vanity project was replaced by another, except people actually liked the Colosseum. Used for 4 centuries to exhibit the heart and soul of an empire, the Colosseum has become the de facto icon of Rome. Its construction alone heralded the beginning of a new political environment. So what do you think of the Colosseum? Would you rather see an event then?
It's
or now?
crazy. So I guess being a spectator at the Colosseum was actually pretty decent, unless you were all the way up at the top row. Apparently you can't really see very well up there, but for the most part, seems pretty luxurious. They even have these canopies that they draw out with ships to give the spectators shade. I mean, if this is what they actually looked like, that's pretty intricate. Just that alone is crazy that they could accomplish that. Like, let alone the rest of the building that can have or seat almost, I think it's 100,000 people total. He said they had almost like trading cards. They had food, concessions. I mean, you name it. I mean, it seems, I mean, the things that went down there, not so cool nowadays, but I mean, back in the day, that was like the thing to do, I'm sure. And I mean, I got to see some pretty cool shows. I mean, to flood the whole thing and have naval battle in the middle of the freaking thing, and then I think they had horse races too at one time, and then just all-out battles between man and beast, between man. There's so much more to unpack here. Like I said in my last video, I'm not like a super educated person. I didn't pay much attention to this all in school. I don't know if we even touched on it for more than maybe a day or two, but I'm learning a lot as my life goes on, especially when it comes to Rome and the Colosseum. I had no idea they used like animals, and I don't know. I had no idea it was to this extent. I just thought it was like a place where they had a little battle here and there, and never really paid much attention to it. So we're gonna do like a whole series on reacting to ancient Rome / Colosseum videos, because I want to learn more about it. This stuff is just insane. So if you guys enjoyed this video, the next video is going to be probably how they built this massive structure, the Colosseum, because I'm really curious to see how they actually did it. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully we can learn more about how this thing was built.